God's grace, mercy, and peace are yours through his Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. As we begin, you can follow along in your bulletin. We got some blanks in there you can kind of fill up as we go. But as we start, I want you to kind of hear this. It's a quick story for you. Many of you have probably heard the same thing happen in your house if you're a parent, but you'll kind of hear a few different examples, right? Every time I come home, my son does this. Daddy, 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 come and see what I did. And he comes and he grabs my hand and he'll pull me, for example, like into his room. And what he's done is he's built like a tower of blocks as tall as he possibly can. And he does this. Ta-da! Every time without fail, right? I should have recorded a video. That would have been petrifyingly like embarrassing 20 years from now. But, ta-da! Because he's looking for affirmation. And I say to him, hey, champ, good job, Caleb. I'm proud of you. Good job. So then later on it goes, I come home from work, and right when I open the door, it's always, Daddy, 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 come and see what I did. And he takes me by the hand as I throw all my bags down by the front door and pulls me over to the fridge where he's hanging a picture that he drew that morning. And he goes like this, ta-da. And I say, hey, Caleb, man, good job. I'm proud of you. A year ago in July, we did potty training with Caleb. And I hear from the other room, Daddy, 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 come and see what I did. Ta-da! Not as pretty as the picture, but what I said was, hey, buddy, good job. Why? Because we always look for affirmation for the things that we're doing. To know, like, Daddy, did I do a good job? And what I'm doing, is that a good thing? And what I'm doing, is that right? So we ask, come and see what I did. And we always look for that good job. And it's not something we ever really grow out of, is it? We always say, come and see what I did. So come and see what I did. Let's go to the next slide. Over here. So we're working on a bathroom. This has been my summer project all summer long. Months ago, we bought this house, unfinished bathroom. So they came with nothing. The plumbing wasn't finished. The water lines were there. And we finally got the contractor in to put the plumbing. So this is kind of the beginning of it, right? And every time I take another step, you can see me installing the floor. You see the bathtub and the surrounds installed. You can go to the next slide. You can see I did my own drywall hanging over there. You can see where I did mud and tape. Don't criticize unless you're coming to help. Go to the next slide. And now we're on to texturing, right? We're starting to texture what the inside will do. We're doing the knockdown texture, right? So I'm doing that, and that's drying off. We're kind of taking step by step by step. Why do I have so many pictures and many more of this? You'll never guess what I do. Daddy, 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 come and see what I did. Because I text these pictures to my dad. And I say, hey, Dad, did I do a good job? Because I want affirmation. So he could say, hey, son, great job. I see the tape line. And I'm like, Dad, don't look at that. And he's like, it's drying. And I'm like, come and see what I did. And he says, good job. I send them to anybody who will look at them. If you want them, let me know. But I'm only going to send them to you if you do what? Give me affirmation. Tell me I'm doing a good job. It's a lot of work, right? I do that. I send it to friends. I send it to a lot of people. I send them to friends. I send them to my dad. I send them to Pastor Dinger. I'm like, Pastor Dinger, look and see what I did. He's like, hey, good job. Are those my tools over there? Yes, they are. I'll give them back later, right? But come and see what I did, right? I saw our head elder here, Cliff Cummings, right? He's right over there. I sent him a message. I worked on my car, changed my spark plugs, ignition coils, and you never guess what I did. Head elder, that's hard to say. Come and see what I did. And I sent him pictures. Why? Because I want him to say, good job. I mostly want him to say, your car's not going to explode if you try driving it. But he said, good job. And I like that affirmation. Why? Because we crave it, we need it. And it is a good biblical thing to do. Right? Paul says, I use my authority, use your authority for building up one another. Encourage one another, spur one another on to good deeds, we read in Hebrews. Encouragement's a good thing. And that happens all the time. Consider the purchases you make, the big purchases you do, right? When you buy a home, when you buy a car, what do? Hey, everybody, come and see what I did. See my house that I bought. I worked hard for that. See my car that I got. I worked hard for that. And not only did I get this house and car, but you always got to mention how I also got it for a deal. You got to know how I got it for a deal. Come and see what I did, because that's not MSRP, let me tell you, right? We always do that. Come and see what I did. Maybe it's a major purchase. Maybe it's when your spouse comes home and you mop the floor and you clean the house. Come and see what I did, right? We want that affirmation. All social media is based off of that, right? Facebook, we want the comments. Come and see what I did. Or Instagram is only pictures, right? Come and see what I did. I got a new boyfriend or girlfriend. Come and see what I did. I got a new dog. Come and see what I did. I was on vacation. Come and see what I did. It's so much so that like on YouTube and Facebook and things like that, they removed the thumbs down button. Did you know that? You cannot dislike anything. You can only do what? Give it a thumbs up, right? Come and see what I did. And give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment. And I'll say this very openly. I'm a words of affirmation love language, if you know all those 5 love languages. So it means a lot when someone says, hey, you did it. You made it. Good job, right? Don't tell me that like, it's not forced thing after service, right? So don't feel like you have to. It's not one of those. But it's more of one of those we always crave affirmation. But there's a problem with this statement to a point, isn't there? What's the problem? Hey, everybody, come and see what I did. Come and see what I did. Come and see the works of my hands. See everything that I have done. Isn't that a good thing? Aren't I so good? And when the affirmation becomes adoration, we have a problem, right? When the affirmation becomes adoration, meaning when it's kind of become like worship, when I make an idol of myself, when all I do is crave the attention, I crave your affirmation, and I need you to say good things about me because that's what fuels me. That's what I need to move forward. That's what I need to operate. Then we've got a problem, right? When it becomes come and see what I did, see the works of my hands, because we end up idolizing ourselves, right? Placing ourselves above God, and I become my own idol. So you see Psalm 115 over there. I got a little bit more in my notes for you. I want to read it for you. So, as we built idols of ourselves, Psalm 115. The idols are silver and gold, the works of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak, eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear, noses, but do not smell. They have hands, but do not feel. They have feet, but do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throats. Those who make them become like them. So do all who trust in them. Do those idols sound very useful? If they can't see, hear, taste, make a sound? They're not really. And they're telling you when you make an idol of yourself, it's not very useful because that's the rightful place for God. When we idolize ourselves, and it's all about come and see what I did. Come and see what I have done. See the works of my hands, because you know what? If that's the thing that I idolize, that I worship, the problem is eventually I'm going to run out of hands. I'm going to run out of things to do. Eventually the things that I'm capable of is not going to be enough. And I'll find that out down the road. Can you go to the next picture for me? Or the next slide, I have a little picture over there, right? Oh, no, that's good. The cute little cartoon over there, right? So you see the man and the octopus. This is us, right? When we always worship one more thing, right? If I could do just one more thing, then I'll be fine. If I could do just one more thing that everybody would appreciate and affirm me for, then I'll be okay, right? You see this guy over here, right? I need just one more hand. And one more hand is never enough because we always fill them up. And then you see the octopus, right? Even when you have one more hand, you always need one more hand. You get the idea? You've heard this concept probably before. We can go back to the other slide with the blanks on there. There's a point where we are just not enough, and we start to see it. We always need a little bit more approval. And you see this is from Isaiah. What's interesting, kind of the book of Isaiah, you can kind of see it in 3 chunks, right, that goes through a lot of history. And that opening over there, he's talking about the kingdom of Judah before they're invaded by the Assyrians, right? And before this, what's really neat in chapters 3 and 4, it is the longest listing in the Bible of accessories and treasures and clothing. You'd read that and go, that sounds really nice, right? That's a lot of stuff. And the problem is they started to worship themselves. Come and see what I've done. See the works of my hands. See what I'm capable of apart from God. See the things that I have done. So right before that long laundry list of all the things that they feel like that they've accomplished and that they've earned, and that is so good for them, we see this in Isaiah chapter 2. Starting at verse 8. Their land is filled with idols. They bow down to the works of their hands, to what their own fingers have made. Then hear this. So man is humbled, and each one is brought low. So what do we gather from that, right? You see that so man is humbled? When it comes to us worshiping the works of our hands, what I can do, how good I am, eventually, well, I'm going to run out of hands. And when I run out of hands and I'm worshiping the one more thing, the problem is when I worship one more thing and I do the one more thing, what's right after that? Another one more thing. And eventually I find out that I can't make it, and I never will. So man is humbled. Realize I'm not going to make it. And the way the word humbled is used here, it's not like, oh, I'm so humble and nice. It's more like if I played against Shaquille O'Neal in like one-on-one basketball, oh man, you just got humbled. That meaning I just got wrecked, right? That means I felt it in a very severe way. So man is humbled and each one is brought low, right? Under Shaq, I would be crushed. That's the idea. I would be brought low. And you see this happen all through the book of Isaiah. And as much as you know about church and early history, right? You see they eventually get captured and enslaved by the Assyrians and conquered and sacked, and then eventually Babylonians. All sorts of stuff happens to this group of people. There's a lot that happens. But then we get to Isaiah chapter 64. It's a long book, right? So a lot has happened. And in Isaiah chapter 64, we read this. This was in our Old Testament reading today. If it's about us and the things we could do apart from God, and we worship the works of our hands, and we find out it's not enough, here's what we ask. Isaiah writes in 64, verse 5, how then can we be saved? All of us have become like one who is unclean, and all our righteous acts are like filthy rags. And how sad is that? When I turn to God and I say, hey, God, hey, Daddy, come and see what I did. See what I've done apart from you. See what I've done that's good, right? It's good, isn't it? The things I've done apart from you, the things that I don't need you for, it's good. They're righteous, right? I'm worthy, aren't I, of these good things? I'm worthy. But then the sad thing is, instead of having this treasure that you get to share in God the Father with, it becomes something that I'm trying to justify who I am and what I do and what I've earned. And then it's become a filthy rag, where all of a sudden the really beautiful picture that was once beautiful that's hanging on my fridge, it's now a filthy rag. The house that I bought, that I was so proud of before, it's now become a filthy rag. The pictures of my vacation, all these things that were just so good to be able to share with somebody, they're now filthy rags if they become what I worship. When it's all come and see what I did, we're eventually humbled and realized what I do is not enough. So what do I do when eventually my hands, the works of my hands, are not enough and we run out of hands? Well, I look to the one who is worthy. When I'm not able to meet the need, when I can't meet the need to be able not just save myself, but to justify myself, I turn to the hands that are worthy. I don't know if this has ever been your house, maybe around Thanksgiving. If you've seen one of these, maybe not sliced peaches. My kids eat these like crazy, right? So we have many jars of peaches, right? But the jar, right? Let's imagine it's Thanksgiving. All the families gathered around. Mom, she has the jar, and she goes like this. And she can't open it. And I don't know if this happened at your house, but she holds it up and says, who is worthy to open the jar? Whose hands are worthy to open the jar? So then Grandpa comes and he takes it. And he can't open the jar. Then Grandma takes it. She can't open it. Little brother comes. He can't open it. Big sister comes. She can't open it. All the cousins line up. No one can open the jar. They all cry out, whose hands are worthy to open the jar? Who can do this? Because we are not able to. And that's when the front door opens, right? And in his cargo shorts, polo shirt, pulled up white socks, the white New Balance with the grass stains on the bottom, mustache and beard blowing in the wind. It's Dad. Here he is, the one whose hands are worthy to open the jar. And in walks Dad. And he takes the jar, he looks at it, maybe uses his shirt, and you hear as he turns, you hear the satisfying what? Pop, just like that. And as he turns and slides the jar across the table with a smile on his face, what does he say to you? Thanks for loosening it for me. Right? Thanks for loosening it for me. And then puts it down. Whose hands are worthy to open the jar? They all cry. And we say that because when we are not able to do something, we say, who is the one that can? Who is the one that is worthy? And we look for worthiness as like power, and we need someone who's so strong and someone that can open the jar. And Dad's not often like the bodybuilder dad, right? There are out there, sure, but often it's just Dad comes in, and for some reason, Dad's hands are worthy to open the jar. We get to Revelation chapter 5. I say this all the time. You'll hear it again. This is one of my favorite parts in the Bible. The Bible, whole thing's my favorite, right? But right over here, Revelation chapter 5, we have a mighty angel who's holding a scroll, and it is sealed, right? A sealed scroll, and he says, whose hands are worthy to open the scroll? to break the seals and open the scroll. The scroll is God's redemptive plan of salvation for all mankind, for all creation. And John looks around and he sees a bunch of people. Come and see what I did. And everyone's tried to open the jar and they can't do it. Everybody's tried. Little brother, older sister, grandma, grandpa. No one can seem to open the jar. And John just wants peaches. That's not what it's about. John wants redemption. He wants salvation. And he weeps. He weeps because God's plan of salvation and redemption is held back because no one is worthy to open the scroll. And it's not Dad that appears at the door because the angel says, don't worry. Here is the one who is worthy, whose hands are worthy to break the seals and open the scroll. And we read this in Revelation. This is again verse 6. A mighty angel says, who is the one who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll. And here's what John sees. Then I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne, and they sang a new song, saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals because you were slain. And with your blood you purchased for God every person from every tribe and language and people and nation. So my question for you is this. What do the hands of the one that is worthy, what do the hands of the worthy look like? They look like the hands that belong to someone who was slain. They're the hands that are stained by someone's very own blood. The hands of the one who was worthy still carries the marks of the nails that were pounded through it as he was crucified for the sake of all of our sins, so we too could be redeemed by that very purchase of blood that we saw, or that I just read for you. And the adoration and affirmation that he seeks is not for his own sake, but for our sake, so that we would know him, and that we would adore him, so that we would know his gift of forgiveness and salvation and eternal life because of that purchase and because of the work of those hands, stained by his very own blood, marked and pierced by nails. And the hands of that worthy one is Jesus Christ. Those are the hands that I want working for me. I don't want to see the works of my hands, right? Because I'm going to run out and I'll find out it's not enough. But the works of the hands of him who is worthy, those are the hands that I want working for me. Because those are the hands that work for me. Because when I say, come and see what I've done, I need hands that are willing to work for me, the hands of the worthy that are also willing to get dirty. The hands of him that are ready to get dirty for my sake. Again, a quick story. I didn't figure this out till 8:30, I'm sorry. This is my third bathroom story, just as a heads up. So when I was a kid, I was growing up and I loved pro wrestling. Loved it. And I was watching Bash at the Beach, WCW, and this is kind of one of those events where all the storylines kind of build up and you see the event kind of cap off and all the matches are big and who wins and oh, it's so exciting, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the match to end and it ends and I'm like, okay, it's in between matches. I run to the bathroom and I run to use the bathroom and someone installed, I'm blaming somebody else, right? Someone installed the roll of toilet paper on backwards. There's one right way to do it. And if you're wondering what the right way is, then you're the one who puts it on wrong, right? But there's one right way to do it because if you take it and you go like this and you get what you need, if you go like that, then sometimes the whole roll does what? And all the paper's coming off of it, right? And that's what happened to me. I kind of went like that, and I went to run out, and I'm like, oh no, and it all just kind of rolled out, and I'm like, oh, what do I do with it? So I took it all, and I threw it in the toilet. Yeah, I know. And I flushed it, and I went to wash my hands, and I go to leave, but all that happens is blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, ooh, uh-oh. So I go to try and flush it again. Maybe it just needs more power. Blah, 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 blah. Uh-oh. So I go and I get the plunger. I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, I'm like 9, right? So I'm like, okay, so I've seen this on TV. And I go and I plunge it. And I'm like, okay, it must be done. And I flush it again. Blah, 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 blah. It's at the top now. And I'm really like, uh-oh, right? So I go and I plunge it again and I flush. And you'll never guess what happens. It is flooding the bathroom. The water is coming out, and I'm going, oh no, what am I going to do? So very logical, young man, I take all of the bath towels out of the linen closet and put them on the floor. My mother was thrilled, by the way. I put all the bath towels on the floor, and I try to fix it again. now it's really everywhere. And I've used every towel. And now there's I've made like a pool as I've rolled them up and made edges. And now it's going underneath the door. So then I leave the bathroom and I go to my dad and I say, Daddy, come and see what I did. He opens the door and he does this. Don't tell your mother. And goes in. Of course, she found out right away. She knew it. She wasn't even home. She felt it, right? Right? She just felt it. She's like, my towels, right? And he goes in, and when I say when I'm incapable, right? When I am in need and I need help and I have found myself in a place where I can't handle it, I need someone who's willing to get their hands dirty and to get involved with my mess. And it was a yucky mess, right? You imagine he's going in there and literally getting his hands dirty and cleaning up my mess. I don't know if this has ever been you. I've gotten those calls at 1:30, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning from somebody, and it's been, hey, Chris, hey, buddy, hey, pastor, come and see what I did. And it's been, uh-oh. And I've driven out to them, whether they've been in a place they shouldn't have been. Well, it's always a place they shouldn't have been, right? Whether it's been the parking lot of a bar, whether it's been out here at this club, whether it's been out there, and oftentimes they've done something that they shouldn't have done. They are now in over their head, and they're like, I need help. Come and see what I did. And if you've ever changed a tire, a spare tire, in the rain, on a roadside, it's dirty work, isn't it? Oh, yeah, and I've changed quite a few of those. Come and see what I did. And then you drive them home in their car and then walk back to get your car and then drive yourself home, right? Come and see what I did. Sometimes the mess may seem petty, but sometimes the mess is really bad because especially that mess isn't just like I came and I changed your tire. That mess is more than that. It's also a relationship, right? Come and see what I did. And those relationships, whether it's my brother, my sister, my friends, my wife, anything like that, those relationships get messy. And we need someone who's willing to get their hands messy. Come and see what I did. And sometimes the response is this, right? Hey, come and see what I did. And if you're willing, I really need help. And we won't get into this. Sometimes it's healthy reasons, sometimes it's not, but sometimes the reply is this. Hey, right now, I can't afford to get involved with your mess. This is your mess, and I really can't afford to get my hands messy right now. And sometimes it ends with a sorry, and sometimes it doesn't. But we get here in Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, there's a man and he is covered with leprosy. Now, when we mean covered with leprosy, there are people, when you get leprosy, sometimes it'd be localized to a spot, sometimes it would spread. They weren't sure how contagious it was or how it would spread, but you were always ostracized from society. You had to leave. You lived in a leper colony that was way outside of town, and whenever someone would approach to you, you'd have to yell, unclean, unclean, so people wouldn't come near you. You lost your life, you lost your job, you lost your way of living, you couldn't even be part of the synagogue anymore. You were unclean to God, they would tell you, even then, with leprosy, as you were banished from outside of town. So this man that comes to Jesus, he is covered, he can't hide it even, covered with leprosy, and says to Jesus, Lord, if you're willing, make me clean. And make me clean means more than just heal my leprosy. It means, Lord, I am deemed unclean. I can't even come into the presence of God. Lord, if you're willing, make me clean. And we skip the sentence that's in between this. We rush to Jesus says, I am willing, be clean, and the man is healed. And we're like, wow, that's miraculous, and that's good, and that is very good. But we miss this part that's in between, and it's this. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. Jesus reached out his hand and placed it upon this man covered in leprosy that no one would be willing to touch, no one would even be willing to go near, because Jesus is willing to get his hands dirty. He's willing to reach out and touch the leprous man. He's willing to reach out to us and the things that we've done, the 2, 3 a.m. calls. He's the one that's willing to reach into the filth of our sin, take hold of us and pull us out from death and bring us into life. To take us from unclean and pull us into that is clean. And only his hands, the hands of the worthy, are the hands of the willing. And those worthy and willing hands are the hands that stay clean as they reach into the dirt and into the muck and into the sin and into the things that we've done that touch us and make us clean and pull us into himself and make us one of his own. So it's no longer come and see what I did. We change it, come and see what God has done. Come and see what God has done, his great deeds for all of mankind. It's no longer about come and see the works of my hands. Come and see the works of his hands. Right? Because as that whole thing continues, right, we get to this point where he says, right before verse 15, you get verse 14, of course, that's how numbers work, right? But in verse 14, we get this. Then Jesus ordered him, don't tell anyone, but go and show yourself to the priests and offer sacrifices to Moses, commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. And you hear that word testimony, and we always go, uh-oh. Because what we think of is like YouTube with like the soft music playing in the background and like all the different shots of like the person telling the story, how they grew up in the Bronx and didn't know anything about Jesus on the streets, and now they're a millionaire and super successful because they knew Jesus, and praise God. And you're like, and that's a good story. It's good that those stories are out there. But you watch those and go, well, that's not my story. Why would I ever have a testimony? Why would I ever share what happened to me? Some of us were born a Lutheran, went to Lutheran school, we're still Lutheran today, and we're like, praise God, but that's not the soft rock music, 25-minute YouTube documentary thing. What could I have to offer? The thing is this, not all of us were covered in leprosy, but all of us were touched by the hands of the worthy, willing one that made us clean. And that's what we all have to share. Because that next verse, right? I think what we overlook is this. We continue, yet the news about him spread all the more, so that the crowds of people came to hear him and be healed of their sicknesses. With school starting up, right? You've probably heard this in the classroom before, whether you were a kid or you're still a kid, and maybe you'll hear it in a couple weeks, right? Oftentimes it's this. The teacher will say, okay, after the lesson or after I've explained everything, does anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? Because if you do, please ask it. Most likely, someone else in the room has the same question, and they're too scared to ask it. Have you heard that before? Oh, yeah. It's the same thing here. This man was covered in leprosy and just went to fulfill his duty over at the synagogue as a testimony to what God had done for him. Doesn't say he went out shouting it from the rooftops, yet the news about him spread all the more, being Jesus, right? And the crowds came to him anyway. Here's the thing. Your story may seem, I don't know, you may feel like it's bland or whatever, but there are so many people just like you that need to hear what God has done in your life. The works and revelation, that's what testimony is. It's just a revelation of God and who he is and what he's done in your life. Because too often it's this. They're exactly like you. Maybe they're the people in the workplace. They're the people that are your neighbor. And they say this, hey, I'm at the point where I've worshiped the works of my hands, and now I'm out of hands. And I don't know where to go. And I don't know what to do. And I don't know where to turn. And it becomes come and see what God has done. Here's what God has done in my life. And here's how he's worked in it. Because I'll tell you what, I'm wearing this cool shirt. This is like the pastor uniform, right? But at 8:30, I'm wearing a big white robe and the stole and everything. It's really cool, and this big white silver cross. People don't want to hear me yelling at them about the things that God have done. I'm not yelling. I'm talking in a projecting tone. As much as I announce, and that's all good, those people need to hear it from you. They need to hear it from their neighbor. They need to hear it from their brothers or sisters, the people that they trust, that they're friends. The testimony of what God has done in their life. Come and see what God has done, his awesome deeds for mankind, the things that he's done for me. And yes, you may not know it, the things that he's done for you, the things that he's done for us all, the works of his hands, the hands of the worthy, willing one in Jesus Christ and what he's done for us. To him be that glory now and forever. Amen.